So the NFL season is officially less than a month away, and I know what you guys are thinking. How is it that a former #1 overall pick, a player that was drafted before the likes of Khalil Mack, who was the top pick in one of the best drafts over the past decade, and also let me know in the comment section down below if you disagree and what your favorite NFL draft of the past decade was. I personally think the 2014 NFL draft was one of the best of all time, at least in the past decade. How is it that Jadeveon Clowney, to this day, still hasn't been signed by a NFL team? NFL training camps are fully underway. What's holding him back? Well, in today's video, guys, we're going to be discussing just that. Now, guys, before we get to this video, make sure you're following me on Twitch. I live stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time. It's kind of important because Madden 21's coming out, and I'm going to be putting in a lot of time, at least any free time I get on that game. And make sure you follow me on Twitter because I actually did a good job identifying a fake tweet earlier today about a trade that didn't end up happening. Also, this video is sponsored. It's our very first sponsorship, guys. Now, before we dive into the video, I wanted to ask you guys something. Have you ever wanted to read more books or just learn more in general, but didn't really have the time to sit down and go through a full book? I personally have tried reading books over and over again, and it takes a bit longer than I'd hoped so. That's why I highly recommend Blinkist. For those of you guys that don't know, Blinkist is an app that takes the best insights from thousands of nonfiction books and condenses them into just 15 minutes. So you can instantly get the best insights of the book by either reading it yourself or even listening to it podcast style while you're driving or you're going about your day. Now, personally, you guys know I'm really into sports, but I'm also into self-development. So I checked out Personality Isn't Permanent by Benjamin Hardy, and it's a 13-minute book that I was able to finish in one drive over to my studio. And they also have a very cool motivation and inspiration section where I was able to check out Mind Over Clutter, which really helped me with clearing my mind, and it was only a 10-minute listen. Now, for each of the first 100 people that go to Blinkist.com/microphone, they'll get an unlimited access trial for a whole week. You also get 25 off to decide if you want the full membership, and during the free week trial, you could cancel at any point. So go to Blinkist.com/microphone, and shout out to Blinkist for giving us our very first sponsor on the channel. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? And guys, I understand what you're thinking. How on earth is Jadeveon Clowney still a free agent? Well, there is a variety of issues that play into his favor that, well, I guess doesn't play into his favor, and that's the reason why he's still a free agent. So let's take it from the top over here, and let me tell you everything that you need to know. First of all, Jadeveon Clowney, top pick in the 2014 NFL draft, primarily because of his blazing fast speed and his hyper athleticism at the defensive end position. I personally think a lot of people love the idea of Jadeveon Clowney, and he doesn't really get identified based off of his true basic stats. He's not the type of player that you look at and say, hey, this is a guy that was able to notch 32 sacks throughout his entire career, and he's an absolute beast as a pass rusher. He's mainly known for his ability to stop the run and his ability to pressure the quarterback. So with that being said, why on earth has Jadeveon Clowney not been signed? Well, the first reason is purely football reasons, and the football reason kind of ties into the financial reason. But when you look at a player like Jadeveon Clowney, typically when a team is trying to pay a premium for the defensive end position, they're looking for a player that has no problem getting to the quarterback. And when you compare Jadeveon Clowney at his desired price point, which is rumored to be as much as $20 million earlier in this offseason, then you kind of get an idea why he hasn't been signed yet. A player that has notched 80 QB hits, 71 tackles for loss, and 32 sacks throughout his entire 6-year career, and we don't have to count his rookie season because he only played 4 games in his rookie season due to injuries, isn't necessarily a player that deserves top 3 defensive end money. And when we compare Jadeveon Clowney to the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL, Joey Bosa, Joey was able to notch 82 QB hits and 40 sacks, 200 tackles, and 53 tackles for loss in just 4 seasons in the NFL. And you have to bear in mind that Joey Bosa didn't really play that much in the 2018 NFL season. The fact that Joey Bosa is able to notch more QB hits than Jadeveon Clowney and literally only has 35 less combined tackles than Jadeveon Clowney, but has 8 more sacks than Jadeveon Clowney throughout his entire career, despite only playing in 51 games to Jadeveon Clowney's 75, explains to you perfectly why Clowney isn't getting a contract right now, because he's clearly overvaluing himself. Now, I'm not saying Clowney isn't a good player. He's a remarkable player to have on your team, and he has his strong suits as well, but he definitely is not in the Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack tier of player. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking through all these prospects, I could understand his argument for thinking that on paper he is better than DeMarcus Lawrence and deserves a similar amount of salary as DeMarcus Lawrence. And when you look at Jadeveon Clowney's career and his statistics and you compare him to his fellow draft classmate DeMarcus Lawrence, they have had very similar statistics throughout their entire career. As a matter of fact, DeMarcus Lawrence has 7 sacks on Jadeveon Clowney, but nearly every other statistic is fairly identical, although DeMarcus Lawrence is beating Jadeveon Clowney at most of those. So making an argument that he's just a tier below DeMarcus Lawrence and deserves the $20 million contract makes sense from his agent's behalf, but then you have a whole nother issue. And that has to do with the amount of depth that was available in free agency this year and other options in order to fortify your pass rush. In free agency alone, teams had the opportunity to select between Matthew Judon, Dante Fowler, Robert Quinn, Emmanuel Ogbah, and even more recently, Everson Griffin. If they desperately needed the help, well, you have a disgruntled Yannick Ngakoue all the way in Jacksonville that you could easily trade for. So why on earth would I go ahead and pay a player like Jadeveon Clowney, who is currently 27, he has plenty of good years left in the NFL, a $20 million per year contract when I could sign a player like Dante Fowler for $16 million a year? Or more recently, I could sign a player to a 1-year prove-it deal like Everson Griffin to a 1-year $6 million contract. It's not just production that's working against Jadeveon Clowney here, it has to do with the market as well. In hindsight, what I think Clowney should have done was accept a franchise tag, go into this season, hope that he's able to turn in another healthy season, play his absolute mind off, and hopefully turn in a dominant season and then leverage that dominant season into a very high-paying contract. But alas, that's not what happened, and Jadeveon Clowney to this day is still a free agent. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, every time I hear people discussing Jadeveon Clowney, there's a lot of biases that go into it. The Cleveland Browns think they're getting them, the New York Jets think they're getting them, and hell, most beat writers like saying that the New England Patriots are a perfect fit for Jadeveon Clowney. But here's the sad part. The longer he waits, the less leverage he has, because the longer he waits, the longer it's going to take him to get acclimated to a brand new NFL system, especially if he signs with a team that's not the Seattle Seahawks, and I really highly doubt that he's going to return to the Houston Texans. Jadeveon Clowney at the end of the day is a cautionary tale of when you are way too aggressive with your contract, and now he's officially in a situation where he's practically playing chicken with every other NFL team that's available, and we're already technically in week 2 of training camps. Walkthroughs are done, and now the longer he waits, the more behind he's going to get, and if he does sign a 1-year prove-it deal, which appears to be more and more likely at this point, he's far less likely to succeed as a result of being signed this late. I don't know, I usually do updates on top marquee free agents, so I figured this was really important to cover here today, guys. I want to get your opinion in the comment section down below. Is there something I'm missing here? Do you think my evaluation of his skill set was unfair? Or do you think there's another reason why Clowney hasn't been signed yet? Do you think he's overrated or do you think he's underrated? And before we go, guys, my Junior Seau documentary is going to drop this weekend. Please go into the description down below and set a reminder for it. YouTube might not show you this documentary because, well, it might be demonetized because Junior Seau's story is extremely dark. I'm your boy Mikerophone, and I'm dropping the mic until our next upload.